Okay, looks like we are live. Want to bring everybody in then? Got everyone?
That should be everyone.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to this morning's meeting of the Akron Vacant Commercial and Industrial Building Appeals Board, which will now come to order. I'd like to read a short statement before we begin. This board hears two types of cases involving particular properties. The first being appeals of notices and orders to comply. The second being reports of hazardous buildings from the Department of Neighborhood Assistance. Representatives of the city, owners, other people in control of the property, neighbors, and other interested parties will all be recognized and given an opportunity to be heard concerning each particular property involved. We'd like to say that any person appearing today that intends to speak at this hearing on any particular property be sworn in to attest to the truth of that testimony. Mr. York, with everybody in here, is this the appropriate time then to go ahead and do that?
Yes, sir.
If everybody would like to unmute their microphones for us, we're going to swear you in for your testimony.
Okay, so any person who intends to testify this morning, that would include city staff, any property owners, any neighbors, anybody who's appearing so they could speak about anything this morning. If you could please raise your right hand and unmute your microphone. Okay, Mr. Shearer, you're going to need to unmute. Ms. Leonard, Zorn, Sajar Raphael, please unmute.
Mine is.
I think we have everybody. Okay, please answer this question. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. York, and thank you, everyone, for that. Our order of presentation will be as follows. First, the city will present a summary of the history of the property. Second, those speaking in favor of appeal or in favor of rehabilitating the property will be heard. Third, anyone speaking against the appeal or against rehabilitating the property will be heard. Finally, those in favor will have an opportunity to respond to the previous comments of those against. With that, we can probably put everybody in the waiting room. We're going to do approval of minutes and then move right into the hearing. First, though, I guess we should can I have a motion to suspend the rules of this board requiring in-person attendance, in-person participation, and in-person voting?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend to board the in-person attendance, in-person participation, and in-person voting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Thank you for that, fellow members. We now have approval of minutes of last month, which was May 12th. Everyone had a chance to review. And anyone have any corrections to make? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. The minutes have passed unanimously. Okay,
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move everyone back into the waiting room, except for the first case, 402 East Market Street. For those that are here to testify that will be in the waiting room, I will be posting in chat the order that the cases will be heard. So the moment I'll get started on this.
we all set then?
Yeah, I've got 20 people to put in. I don't know a way to do it in mass, so I
Yeah,
apologize.
no problem. Just want to make sure we're good.
I suppose you could go ahead and start. If there are any stragglers, I can get those in. Thank you.
All right, then. We are going to begin with review case number 003-21. This is 402 East Market Street. Mr. Johnson, do we have, excuse me, an update on this one?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0003-21, address of 402 East Market Street. This case was last reviewed in May 12th of 2021. At that time, the owner was required to contact the Summit County Building Department and get additional information regarding occupancy of the second floor before the first floor is complete. At this time, we do not know if that has happened. We haven't had an opportunity to re-inspect, or there hasn't been any communication with the owner since the May 12th meeting.
Okay. Who do we have here to speak in favor of this bill?
Yes, I.
Mr. Nguyen, you want to state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm Vin Nguyen, and the owner of 402 East Market Street.
Okay. Can you give us an update since last?
Yes, since we've last spoke, my general contractor and I have reached out to the building department. There will not be any issue with obtaining an occupancy for the second floor because the first floor currently is not an assembly facility or whatnot. And so my general contractor and my architect is working with the building department, and all these permits are going to be available for renovation very soon.
Okay. Any idea when?
My guess will be within a couple of weeks. The renovation should start.
Okay. Do you have a way to provide verification of all this to the city?
In which way, like writing or permits or what? I mean, I'll be happy to. I mean, I'm not familiar with what the process is, so I'm here to comply with whatever that needs to be done.
Very good. I guess I would ask Mr. Johnson, are we okay with what is being stated here today, or do we need a verification of this?
We do need some verification. We would like to have an opportunity to inspect any work that has been done. Once he obtains any certificates of occupancy pays for the process, has any contractors estimates or bills, we would like to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have some of that information. I think that for that building, the main issue that we ran into initially with all this is the fact that people were breaking in. And so, like I stated on the earlier calls, there'll be all security shutters that is going to be installed. And I do have the receipt of that. The guy just hasn't been able to come in and install it yet, but the purchase, I already made a deposit. I have the bill, I have the receipt for all of that if the city needs to see that. And obviously, for my general contractor that's working on the building, I mean, whatever it is that you guys want to see, I'll be happy to provide that as well.
Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Nguyen would be willing to email those documents to myself or Rachel, we'd appreciate it. And as I stated, as progress moves forward, we would like to keep in communication and have an opportunity to inspect that progress.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Mr. Nguyen, are you able to email these documents?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
You know, I'll be happy to do what, I mean, yeah, Mr. Johnson, we've been communicating. He has my contact as well. We'll communicate and see what else needs to be sent over. I'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is John York. Could I ask a few questions?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Nguyen, if you know, do you know what types of permits the county building department is requiring you to obtain?
So, I'm personally a physician. I'm not familiar with, you know, all the technical aspect of what needs to be done. And so my general contractor who's doing this is really the one that's getting involved in terms of obtaining all the permits. And my architect.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing that you have a professional involved. So I guess my question would be, whatever permits you obtain, because the county requires those, would you also provide copies of those permits to Mr. Johnson?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, through this whole process, yeah, whatever it is that, I mean, I'll be, when it gets to me, I'll forward it to the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you have a ballpark on how long it'll take you to renovate this portion of the building?
Once all the permits are pulled from a general contractor, he says it's going to be very quickly, probably within 2.5 to 3 months.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. York. Anything else to add, Mr. Nguyen?
I don't think so.
Okay. Members of the board, any questions?
None.
Okay, anyone to speak against this? Okay. Hearing none and just sort of analyzing what we've heard, I think any approval going forward, we would need to, have Mr. Nguyen send over to the city all permits, copies of billing, any other documentation that is relevant here, so that the city stays in the loop. With that, I guess I'd look for and entertain a motion.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on case number 0003-21 402 East Market Street. In reference to Mr. Nguyen to make sure he stay in contact with the city with all permits and documentation of what's going on within the building. I'd like to give him an extension of 60 days to get the building up to date and continue to stay in contact with the city.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed? Okay, Mr. Nguyen, please get your documentation in the city and we'll see you in 60 days.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we have a date on that?
Yes.
I don't have a calendar in front of me. So
Give me 1 second. That would be August the 11th.
August the 11th. Okay, then for the record, Mr. Nguyen, that's August 11th. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah, I'll do that.
thank you very much. Okay. Number 2, I believe we have a new case hearing.
Yes, I'm going to bring in the people to speak for 1300 Diagonal. One moment. Mr. Nguyen, I'm going to put you back in the waiting room.
Okay. Okay, do you want to unmute? I guess it's Alam Hamed. Is that correct?
I believe there are people here both for and against.
Oh,
And I would ask that anyone that's not speaking, any of the people are here to testify. If you're not speaking, if you would mute your microphones, thank you.
Okay, so this is new case hearing number 15-21. Address is 1300 and 1304 Diagonal Road. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0015-21, address of 1300 and 1304 Diagonal Road. This building is vacant, dilapidated, and they just registered the property on June 1st. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the deteriorated condition of this property makes it a public nuisance and a blight and a safety hazard to the neighborhood. There's been police activity and numerous complaints to the councilmen and from the neighbors. There's been some nuisance issues there and a lot of problems. The city of Akron had an opportunity to inspect the property on Monday, June 7th. And it needs quite a bit of electrical work. There's some roof leakage in the rear. There looks like there was some leakage from the roof and the side wall on the north side of the building. It looks like it may have been repaired, but we couldn't see for sure. The City of Akron's building and superintendent feel that to get this building up to par, it'd be very, very expensive. So the owners were cleaning it out while we were there. A lot of issues here. Furnace needs some work. As I stated, a lot of electrical work. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, who do we have here to speak in favor of this?
Hello.
Hello. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Salsabil Ayad. I'm the owner's daughter.
Your address?
3225 Pickle Road, Pickle Road, Akron, Ohio, 44312.
Okay, you heard the review of this. Building seems to be in pretty bad shape. Can you enlighten the board here a little bit on what's going on from your end?
So initially we had 2 people staying in the building, and both of which didn't allow us access into the building, which is why we failed to recognize all of the things that were going on. Now that we understand everything that is happening here, we've completely taken control, and we plan to assess all of those issues.
Okay, so is this fairly recent that all this has taken place?
Yes, so somebody was in it and they had a tire shop. Yeah, and the city told us that that wasn't allowed, which is why eventually when we got control, when we got control of that, somebody that knew him or somebody that was in relation with him took it over as a body shop, which then the city also told them, like, you're not allowed to do that. And so that's when they got in contact with us, and now we're here. So we honestly didn't have much time to recognize the issues that were in the building while it was, while they were in the building. Yeah, they were squatters.
Squatters. Okay, well, our notes for this report show a number of violations over the past few years and some attempts to contact the owner, which should be you, I guess, and with no response, no contacts made. Can you respond to that?
Was it sent to the building? Do you know where it was sent exactly? Because she didn't, as she's the owner, she didn't anything.
I'm sorry?
She's the owner. She doesn't speak with very good English, and she's saying that she didn't receive anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and she doesn't really read very well as well.
All right. Well, my last question for now is, what is your intent what is your plans for this building?
So as one side is obviously much worse than the other, for 1304 Diagonal Road, there is somebody that's actually interested and they want to, yeah, they're putting a deposit down. They want to in a few days, and they plan to open a retail store, but it's going to be like online retail. So they want to sell their clothing online and just use that basically as, yeah. And so, yeah, they want to use that as like an in-store where you can go in and online. And then the other side, we're planning on working more on it because that side seems to have a lot more issues. And then once that meets up to par, then we're going to put it on the market for lease.
Okay. All right. Fellow members of the board, do you have any questions for the owner here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Oh,
You said there were squatters in there and you couldn't get in. Did you contact the police to try to get the squatters out?
Yes.
And what was the results of contacting the police and trying to get the squatters out?
We had to go through court at that time, and then that's when COVID took place. Yeah, we put them 3-day notices on multiple attempts. There was no
You say, sorry, these squatters were running a business then out of there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They wouldn't pay rent, and then every time my mom would go to like try to talk to them or try to get rent from them, they would yell at her.
They were at one point tenants.
Yes. They were tenants. Yeah, they were tenants for 2 months, and then they became squatters for a year.
Okay.
any other questions?
What time frame was that when you were saying that they was renters and then they became squatters? When did they start renting?
وانت استأجروها.
In the beginning,
Maybe 1 year,
2020.
last year.
Last year,
1 year, last year. But before another guy, he was tire shop. He stay another year, but last year, he give me deposit first month free rent and never pay me any rent. Every time I go there, they kick me up and I am scared. I put him 3-day notice and they didn't care. And I didn't know what I do because the coronavirus.
Yeah, so initially they came, I believe it was January 2020, and then it had taken place through 2022.
21.
2021, sorry.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, did we ever get the mailing address to where our correspondence was sent? You say you never received anything, but was it sent to your home or was it sent to the business? Sorry if I missed this part.
When الغابة ودوهم? She doesn't know where it was sent because she never got any of them.
شو هن الرسائل؟
Yeah.
On our end, do we know where it was sent?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think this to be a question more for the city staff. Do
Right.
you have an address where the correspondence was sent?
Let me look through here. Let's see. Our address has 3187 Pickle Road, Akron, Ohio, 443-112.
So I believe that's the address you stated earlier for the record. And you're saying you never received anything?
I live in somewhere different, but yeah, that's my mother's address. And she said that she didn't receive anything.
Mr. Johnson, wouldn't those orders have also been posted at the property?
Yes. Anything that was mailed to the house, as far as orders, are always posted on the building.
Usually مستأجرينكم.
Yeah, yeah. The squatters must have removed them because she said that she didn't see anything on the building.
Maybe the people rent the place.
Okay, before I move on, do you have anything else to add? Talking to the owner, Ms. Ahmed.
Yeah. No, just no, thank you. Just I told you we wanna fix it, keep it clean, rent one side, open another side. Already somebody give me deposit, they give me deposit to rent the small side, already is fixed.
Mr. Chair, could we have the owner identify herself just for the record?
انت الowner.
Yeah.
Identify yourself. That's mine.
That's Ahlam Hamid.
Okay.
And your address is 3187 Pickle Road.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this? Okay, we have a number of people in the room here. Is it, I'm assuming that people want to speak against, so Mr. Gregor, can we bring in the first one, whichever you deem that would be?
And Mr. Chair, I believe Helen Arnold, Lenita Jones, Councilman Russ Neal are here to speak against Mr. Ayad. I don't know what, I thought he was here for this property. Mr. Ayad, if you could unmute and tell us, verify that you're here to speak for this property.
Yes.
Were you here to speak for or against this property?
For.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead with your testimony. Please let us know, state your name and address for the record, and then go ahead with what you have to say.
They actually spoke on my behalf. Whatever they said is pretty much what I was going to jot down and testify for. That's pretty much it. I would like to remain muted.
Well, are you a tenant?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you're just an interested party. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sammy Ayad, 3125 Pickle Road.
Okay. All right. You have anything else to add then? Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Neal, Ms. Leonard, and Ms. Jones here to also speak on this property.
Okay, why don't we start with councilperson, Mr. Neal?
Thank you. Good morning. Excuse me, I'm on my phone. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Good, thank you.
I want to thank the city for finally bringing this before the review board. This property has been a problem for some time for the community. Ever since I've been on council, I've heard complaints. I heard the statement by the owners. There has never been any investment to improve this property. It's been kept pretty much like a shanty shack. The last painting that they said was done by the squat, the last painting was done by the folks they said were squatters. In my phone, since I'm on my phone, I can't check all my data, but I remember, I think I've had some conversation with Sammy, but I remember in my phone, I have Omar connected to the property. I've been trying to get them to listen to the concerns of the neighborhood. And I tell you, as much as I like to keep property that could be rehabbed by a good owner and used for a good purpose, this property has needs to go. It's been a nuisance to the community for some years, and there's been no investment trying to beautify the property. I don't know where the owners live, but I need to ask them would they want this property sitting across from their home the way it looks. Would they maintain this property? Would they want this property the way it's maintained, sitting across from their home the way it looks? And for that, I'm asking that the board hear the concerns of the community and the proposal for Mr. Johnson, and please raise this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, we want to bring in the next person.
Okay, Mr. Chair, all the people that want to testify for this hearing are in the room, and you could just call on them.
Okay.
Ms. Jones, and Ms. Leonard are both here. Thank you.
Okay. I guess it's is it Anita Jones? Am I saying that correct?
Yes. Good
Can you,
morning.
state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Lenita Jones. My address is 1276 Harmon Avenue, which is directly around the corner, stone's throw away from the property at 1030 Diagonal Avenue.
Okay.
Should I speak or wait?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes. I'd like to give a little background history on this property. Originally, even before the current owners, upon which I believe this particular owner, this lady is owner by default. She's not the original owner. Her husband was. The family has maintained this property. I won't say maintained, they have owned this property for a few years. Basically, the reason why I became involved in it is because I am also one of the chair people, the captains for the Shabandi Hill Block Watch crime group, which encompasses several blocks and several many families. I don't want to say their names, but they would like to remain anonymous, that have great concerns because they own property here or they rent property. They maintain their property. They cannot control what goes on outside their block or around the corner or whatever, but they do their best and diligent in maintaining their property clean and livable and quiet. This particular property for years has been the epicenter for crime. It has violations of health code, shootings, stabbings. We had a problem with liquor sales going on there, state violations of that, prostitution, health code violations, rodent problems, unlicensed businesses that the family that owns this property allowed to be there, and also allowing their family members to run property, run businesses that were illegal and deal with people that have serious felony problems that are unable to become licensed business people for whatever reason. They don't want to do it the legal way. They'd prefer to do it the illegal way. Also blocking driveways of neighbors that live near, them being in fear, living a stone's throw away from the building, of bullets coming into their home, people coming on their yard because it's their older homes, neighborhood break-ins, theft, car theft, wandering crackheads and drug addicts that basically come and wander around. Now, this was in the heyday of this ownership of this property that this particular family was fully aware of and participated in with some of their family members selling drugs and drug busts and drug raids going on there. The neighborhood is tired of it. And I'm just speaking, representing other households, not just myself, are just sick of it. They were patient for years, hoping that it was an old corner back in the day, neighborhood store. There was a floral shop on one side. They were hoping that eventually a little mom and pop's store would come in there and, buy the newspaper, get the loaf of bread, right around the corner. That didn't happen. It just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I can surely testify that my breaking point was a few years ago when they were very active in selling the drugs, having a mini store, selling liquor out of a back door with a hole cut in it. And the drug people would drive by and they'd place their order and get it out the back door. And that was done by family members and their friends. Car racings at nighttime, revving up engines at nighttime, you could hear for a block or two around, thinking it was a speedway. They thought it was funny because they knew it irritated the neighbors. It's not going to change. They had their time to do something. They wouldn't maintain to keep it clean. Finally, they would start picking up a little bit, but it takes a lot. Now it's to the point where it's too late. The building is crumbling and they just don't have a vested interest in that. It's sad. We all hope for it to work out, but too many bad things went on. They knew what was going on. They covered it up, and we don't want this slum property here existing, and it needs to be torn down. And as representing my constituents that I represent, and we will be meeting after this, not today, the Shabani Hill Block Watch Crime Group will be meeting and talking about the results that y'all decide on this property. But we would like to see it raised as you had raised the other property that they owned across the street that was the old Amco station that they had a tire shop in and then moved over there. And that was a family member, and rodent problems and the same thing, drugs and whatnot. So we're hoping that today you all decide to tear it down for the safety of the neighborhood, the safety of the kids that walk by to go up to the school, and for the elderly and the families that do live in this area. We're not running, we're not leaving, and we deserve better, and we should not have to have that in our neighborhood that looks like something, it's terrible. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect and new, but it didn't have to be like that. So please tear it down, we're asking. Thank you so very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for testifying. I believe there's one more person, Helen Leonard. Would you like to unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Can
All right,
you
yes.
state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Helen Leonard, 1153 Packard Drive, Akron.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
We have lived here. My husband's lived here since 1959. We're like a block and a half from where this property is. We've lived here, like I said, my husband since 1959. I came in 1970 when we married. This property has been an eyesore from these owners since Mr. Lynch, Tom Lynch, owned by Right Market and the flower shop. My two boys worked their way through college at that store down there. First of all, when it started out being a store, we had a meeting over at the church with Mr. Neal about what was going on, the drugs, the alcohol, everything that was going on. We in the community could not go to the store to buy what we needed because of the activities that were going on. He promised at that time he was going to do better. He was going to make it to where we could come and get whatever we needed. We'd have to run to Acme or wherever to get a loaf of bread. Okay, that was then. All right, then you know what happened with what went on down there. All right, from there, then there was the tire shop over across the street. Piles and piles of tires. And we had meetings with Mr. Neal and the city and to get something done because if that building had went up in flames, it would have took half a block away. All right, that went on for a long time. All right, then here come the body shop. We had another meeting and when they said that was squatters, just last fall, when the pandemic was still in, we had a meeting at Mr. Smith's house over on Winton. And we had the chairs all, even though it was a COVID going on, we felt it was enough that we come together and talk about what was going on because sometimes there was 25 cars down there to have details done. Well, the guy that was doing the details, he didn't show up, but his father did. His father said he was a young man trying to make, a business and so forth and so on. And he would get with him and they would straighten up and make it look better. All right. They're the ones that painted the building, part of the building. The top part or one side was never painted. On top of that, they did fix it up as far as lining up the cars and so forth and so on. And it was a danger because as you come around the bend there, it's a curve. Sometimes there would be maybe 10 cars out front and someone would be backing out and some people would have to slam on their brakes. I was almost in a terrible accident there. I got so tired, I told Mr. Neal, we're moving out of this neighborhood. I'm sick of it. And they say they live on Pickle Road. I know where Pickle Road is. And as the young lady before said, would they want this building and this trash and this stuff going on in their community? But yet they come in our community and they tear it down. You can come, anybody that's on here, and look between where their building is in Bellevue, Packard, between this place, and you'll see my husband and I were block club presidents. He just gave it up because he had heart surgery 2 years ago. But we had 2 drug houses in this area, and we got them out as neighbors, sticking together. We were determined. They were not going to tear down our property, and we were not running. And so the things that go on in this area, and we as citizens, and we pay taxes, we have a right to live in our community. They wouldn't go out in Fairlawn. They wouldn't go out in Montrose. They wouldn't go out in Bath. And we are tired of it. Ward 3 is tired of it. So I want this building, and we as our neighbors in this block club area on Packard Drive want it tore down. When the tire place, when the body shop was down there, they were speeding up and down. They would get their cars fixed, and then they were speeding up and down Packard Drive. We have children. We have about 10 children, small children in this block. They have to keep them in the backyards because the speeding is still going on, the revving the motors and all of that. Everything the lady before me said was the truth. And we're tired of it. I'm tired of it. My husband's 87, I'm 77. We don't need this. We want to live in peace and we keep our properties up. And that's all we're asking for, the city to help us. Tear it down, please.
Thank you. Okay. Just for the record, anyone else in the waiting room to speak against? I don't see anybody, but can we confirm that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's all, those are the only folks that I could identify that were here to speak on the property.
Okay, before I bring the owner back in, any members of the board have any questions for anybody at this point?
I have no question, Mr. Chairman, but I have statements.
Do you want to make those now, or do you want to wait till I bring the owner back in to answer what we've heard?
I'll wait till the owner back in.
Okay, all right, very good. So then, Ms. Ahmed, would you care to come back in and answer any of the complaints that we've just heard?
I left my door.
Hello, my name is Saja Ayad. I'm here to translate for her. I just wanted to clarify a few things. The information that was relayed is false. The property across the street is not owned by us. So we have nothing to do with that. We cannot control speeding or anything like that, but we can control who rents out the property continuing forward.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I don't believe this witness was sworn. Did you get sworn in earlier, ma'am?
I did not, I'm sorry.
Can I swear her in, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please do, Mr. York. Good point.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
شوفنا احكي
احكي انت قولي لي.
قولي لهم ان ذاك زمان جروسري ستور.
It was previously a grocery store. It was rented out by us. My family did not know the activity or what was going on around the store. I mean, they could control as much as they could by driving by, telling the people to whatever was going on. They could try to tell them to stop, but there was nothing they could do there. But I mean, moving forward, they're going to try their best to rent it out, not as a market that it was before. Just as a small, either storage unit or something small, but they want to fix it up first and focus on restoring the property and then hopefully renting it out as a small business.
Small business.
Okay. How long have you owned the building?
حوالي 21 years, maybe 19 years, 18 years, 19 years.
About 18 and 19 years.
احنا بنأجر احنا شو بعرفنا.
It was we've owned it since then, but it was rented out to other people since then.
I don't just wanted to know how long you've owned it. And what do you have to say about the testimony we've heard for the recent past with the I'll call it the bad history of
وكل شيء ايش في الهيستوري بتاعت الحارة.
لا أنا بحب إنه أنا بكيت أروح عدة مرات بس أنا بحب إنه يصير أحسن وهالوقت في
She said she would love for it to be to become a good property and to be better and she wants to move forward to make it better, but she just didn't have control unfortunately then and didn't speak the best of English and we weren't unfortunately around to translate or to help her with anything. But we're now I moved from Florida to help with the businesses and to help take control over the properties because of the squatters and all the other issues that they've been having with communication. So I mean now she has her now she has her sibling or sorry her children here to help her move forward with fixing it and keeping it up to code. Yeah, and she doesn't plan on renting it out to just anyone. She wants to make sure that she vets the people because she's just
Well, the building looks to be in pretty bad shape. I mean, is it worth fixing up, and do you have the resources to do that? The resources and the will?
Mhm. Yes, we've already talked to quite a few electricians, plumbers. We have a guy coming out for roofing this week. So, I mean, we're definitely all ready for that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this is John York. Could I ask a few questions?
please, Mr. York, go ahead.
Does the owner realize that the work that you're talking about undertaking requires permits from the
Yes.
county?
Yeah.
And is it your intention, if the board granted time, is it your intention to pull permits for all the work that needs permits?
Yeah.
So you heard from Mr. Johnson that there's electrical problems there. There's the roof's in disrepair. There's a crack, several cracks in the exterior walls. And then there's also furnace problems. Your testimony is that you're going to make sure those permits get pulled?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess for the fire department, would they be required to obtain a certificate of occupancy prior to being able to use this building?
Yes, they'll be required to get a certificate of occupancy, yep.
Okay, so you understand what the fire department, Mr. Dixon testified to, is that before you can put anybody in there, you actually have to obtain a certificate of occupancy.
Occupancy?
So what you're not allowed to do is just put somebody in there, because that would be illegal. You understand that?
She understands that.
Okay.
Here's my question too about tenants occupancy. You've said you've owned this building for 19 years and never in that history have been able to secure a reasonable tenant. You've always had issues with what kind of business they're running out of there. Is that accurate?
Yes, that was when her children were all younger and couldn't really help. I mean, we were all in school at a very young age, but now we're all older and now we're running the businesses for her and we're helping. So, I mean, I think it would definitely be very different today because we're more in control than she is, because she doesn't really speak English. She can't read. So, I mean, there was not much she could do, unfortunately.
But she was not the only owner, is my understanding. I mean, your father or her husband maybe owned it at some point.
Yeah.
19 years.
They're both refugees. They don't really speak great English. They've relied on us as children to translate, and it wasn't really done well. Yeah.
You referred to businesses. What are the businesses?
Well, we have a duplex that we run. We used to have the businesses, but those are all we've sold. Sold them. But there's duplexes that we run now, and that I'm running personally now, and environment.
You're talking
Mr. Chairman.
about rentals?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
yes, can I make my statement now?
Sure. Mr. Polk, please go ahead.
Well, to the fact of the three that's opposing this, I can attest to you that most of those things that were stated are true. I frequent this street, and in the last 10 to 15 years, this building has been in disarray with cars, vehicles, like Mrs. Leonard was stating, people hanging out. And I don't know about the activity that's going in and out of it, but the building itself is an eyesore. From what Mr. Johnson was saying, from being inside of it, I believe all of that is accurate, and I believe this building should not be there.
Thank you. Okay. Members of the board have any other comments or questions? I'll ask the owners if there's any last statement they would like to make before we turn it over to a motion and vote. Is that a none?
Nothing, no.
Thank you. Well, I will say it's been, I can't remember exactly how long this board's been in existence. It's been a few years, but it's pretty rare for community to come out like we've heard today.
Correct.
So if there's nobody else that has any questions, members of the board, I would look for a motion.
I would like to make the motion, Mr. Chairman, with respect to 1300 and 1304 Diagonal Road 0015-21. Due to the dilapidated state, the vandalism, squatters, and largely due to the community, particularly, I'd like to thank Ms. Jones. I too am a block watch captain, and I would not want this in my neighborhood. And I propose that we demolish this building.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. All right, this board has moved and voted for demolition of the building. I'd like to thank everyone for testifying today. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
At this point, might it be appropriate if perhaps Mr. York could explain what that means for the neighbors and for the owners, what the next step in the process would be?
Well, the notice of the board's decision will be provided to the owner. There's an appeal period. If there's an appeal filed, that may take some time, but if the appeal is unsuccessful, or if there's no appeal, then the city would move forward with the process of demolition, which would include assessing the property for asbestos, abating any asbestos, demolishing the building, and then assessing the cost of demolition to the property owner. I'm not sure how long that might take, but 6 months, I think, would be a conservative estimate for the earliest possible time it might happen.
Thank you, Mr. York.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the people for this case back into the waiting room and then bring in the testifiers for the next case.
Thank you.
Cases. I'm bringing in Mr. Zorns and Mr. Alstrom, who are here for 1086 Brown Street.
Okay, thank you. This is new case hearing number 13-21, 1086 Brown Street. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0013-21, address of 1086 Brown Street. This building is vacant, dilapidated, lease activity, tax delinquent. The owner registered it yesterday, June 8th. The deteriorated condition of this property makes it a public nuisance and a blight and a safety hazard to the neighborhood. It is tax delinquent in the amount of $9,681.10. This property was purchased by the current owner on April 5th, 2021. Mr. Chairman, we had an opportunity to inspect this building. The building has quite a few problems: electrical, roof issues, security issues. The back door is not secure. They had a recent attempt or break-in. I think it's a lot of police reports on this one. Some of it not when the didn't occur when the current owner had it, but there's a couple since the current owner has had it. There was also a murder in this building that quite concerns the councilman and the residents in the area. I have about a 4-page email here, and I'm not going to read it all, but it was forwarded to me from the councilman, Mr. Donnie Kamer, with a lot of different information on it about complaints from residents, concerns of the residents about drug activity, people hanging around out front with all kinds of other different issues going on. There was an illegal body shop here at one time. There were complaints and information about possible gambling going on in this building. A lot of issues, just as much as the issues of the condition of the building. As you can see, there's a crack right there, and the back wall is bowled out. Some structural problems there. Pretty extensive problems here, not only just with nuisance issues, but with police activity and maintenance. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Was this a complaint-driven thing? How did it come to your attention initially?
Actually, the building next door, 1090, was on our list, and the board went through this process, and the owner got that building in compliance. So while we were dealing with that building, we noticed this building and could tell that it had some problems, and it was investigated as to if the zoning was proper for the auto repair business body shop that was going on next door. And of course, it came to be that it was not zoned for that. So it got on our radar through those issues. Plus, there was always nuisance complaints of trash around the building and things like that. So I'll say there's a number. There was a number of ways that it came to our attention.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have who do we have here to speak for this? Either Mr. Alstrom or Mr. Zorns. You want to unmute?
Mr. Zorn's going to go first.
Okay. For the record, your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Zorns Jr., 1614 Hillbush Avenue, the owner of 1086 Brown Street.
Okay. What can you tell us about things?
Well, there's been a lot going on at that building before I came into play. Sure, there was a lot of drug activity. There was a lot of nuisance stuff that Mr. Johnson brought up. Absolutely. But in the last 6 months, there was one break-in that had to do with the problems with next door to my building. A lot of the drug activity and all that comes from, in the alleyway next door. A lot of this stuff has been resolved, as in with the drugs and all. We shut everything down once Mr. Johnson and all them came through and said that we weren't zoned for the detail shop and all that. So we shut everything down to try, kind of start over. Yes, there was a murder there. A friend of ours did get killed in the building. It was a needless thing that happened, but at the same time, it's just time to pretty much pivot and move forward with something different. I own a store out in Barberton called the Used Treasure Store, and I've done, pretty well with everything that I've been doing. And I believe that I can get this place up to code, and I believe that I can get this handled with, with a little bit of time, and I put forth, the effort. I know I can make this happen. I know it's been a problem. I've walked around and talked to the neighbors, a couple of the business owners around the neighborhood, and personal cell phone number. Told them if they need me at any time, day or night, I'd be more than willing to be there. All they have to do is call me and I'll come right out. I've always come right out when something was going on or something was happening, or, police were next door or whatever. They make a phone call and I show up within a few minutes. I live right in Springfield Township, and I have no problem with doing what I need to do to make this, make this better and, make it better for over there in that area. Whatever I need to do with, whatever Mr. Johnson says or whatever you guys say, that's what I'll do. I just need to get, the guidance to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Fix this wall, fix this. Okay, I'll make that happen. I just need a little bit of time, and I'll make, I'll put forth the effort to, get it up to code.
Okay, and how long have you owned it?
Since about January this year, but it's been less than a year that I've been actually involved with it. Now I've tore off the face. There was a bunch of wood on the front. We put a beam up. I mean, we've tore out so much stuff that was inside of it, put money into it, and then we shut things down. So now it's at the point where I'm either going to put a store into it, a retail store, or a construction company, go to zoning and see if I can get it rezoned, or let's say construction and like storage.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Alstrom, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Bobby quite some time, professionally and, personally. The average person doesn't understand, how to buy real estate and what to do and zoning. And when you kind of walk into a known problem, and I can't disagree with anything that was said today about what it was. And I spoke with Mr. Kamer and, some of the neighbors trying to guide, Mr. Zorns through this process. But I could tell you that the projects he's worked on for me personally have been completely, 100% on board, and just knowing and understanding the whole process. So I would definitely, maybe table the situation, educate him how the process works, because the average person really doesn't understand that. He has the time and the resources to do all this stuff now. And then, definitely give him a shot at the title to make this stuff happen for him. And I don't mind guiding him through this as well, this process, because there's a lot of moving parts to this. There's definitely a lot of situations prior to him that he can definitely take care of.
So what's your relationship? Are you a co-owner, or are you just an advisor, or what?
At this moment, just a personal friend, and I have real estate myself. And he called me asking, because I have a former councilman for Green, so I have the knowledge for the zoning stuff, and then advise him, trying to pivot him through all that process, because the average person doesn't understand it one bit, because there was a lot of things going on. So I'm helping him walk through that process, and can vouch for him turning that store around in Barberton as well. I spoke with a councilman out there, Sean Rocky Jabber, and he was supposed to send a letter to you guys asking you not to, give him a shot as well, not tear this building down. So he would be another reference person as well.
Okay, did I get your name and address for the record?
I don't believe I said it. I can.
Can you do that for us?
James Alstrom, AHLSTROM, 4996 Maslin Road, North Canton, Ohio, 44720.
Thanks. Okay, anything else to add then?
For me, no.
Okay, anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak against? All right, members, I will ask you for any input on questions and comments.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Paul.
Mr. Zorn, why was it not registered until yesterday? And also, when did the murder take place?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The reason it wasn't registered until yesterday is because Mr. Johnson, when we had the meeting over there for him to do the inspection, informed me that that's what I needed to do. So as soon as he informed me to do so, that's what I did. I went down, I paid the fee and registered what I needed to do. Like Mr. Olstrom said, a lot of this stuff I don't know. And I'm learning as I go. And I have people as like Mr. Olstrom that's, very knowledgeable in this stuff. He's been helping also. And once Mr. Johnson said to do this, I contacted Mr. Olstrom and he said, yes, whatever they say, make that happen, go do that. So that's exactly what I did. So at this point, whatever, I need to do, that's what I'm going to do. I'll be diligent about everything that needs done. The murder was, I think it was 6 months ago. Can't quite remember, 5 or 6 months ago, somewhere around there.
So you were the owner at that time?
On paper, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. But that stuff had nothing to do with me. I wasn't fully on track with everything that was going with the building at that time.
It was in transition.
It was in transition. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ed Dwayne Gregor, Housing Administrator. We do have Sergeant Kim Williams with us from Akron Police. If there are any questions regarding the Akron Police involvement at the property, I would think that she could probably provide the date of that murder if it's needed.
Okay. Sergeant Williams, would you care to weigh in then?
Yeah, I do have the report from that. It occurred 12/18 of 20 at about 4 in the morning.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd also like to mention, when we were sharing the pictures, I'll bring the pictures back up. One suggestion that we would have is that if the current owners or operators of this building are declaring their desire to run legitimate business at this property, this property has generated a lot of interest from the neighborhood because of the previous activities. There are people that are actually afraid to testify here today because of the activities that have gone there. One suggestion that I would have, if the board were to be inclined to grant an extension, is that I would make a recommendation to the owners to eliminate the vestiges of the previous activities. When we see a picture from last week that shows a door indicating that this is a private club that's open 7 days a week from 12 p.m. to 6 a.m., I don't believe that gives the neighbors any positive feelings that there's that the intentions for future use of this property are going to be positive. So that would just be my suggestion. Thank you.
And if I could mention, I definitely agree with that. But it comes to one of the situations like what fire are you going to put out first? But obviously there would be definitely stages of construction being done. So I would recommend to him to start with the electrical and the main sources, and then go to the outskirts, which is why we're asking, for him to get some time to prove himself and do that. And then, at that moment, the neighbors can definitely see the transition of the two different owners.
Well, if I might make a suggestion to Mr. Gregor's point, I think the elimination of this message on this door would be quite simple to do, and would say, maybe volumes about what you're doing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is John York. Could I ask a few questions of the fire
Sure.
department?
Yes, Mr. York, please go ahead.
Okay. I think we'd like to get a better idea of what actual violations are out there. I think it might help Mr. Zorns to understand what he would need to do if the board decides to give time. Did the fire department inspect this property?
We did, yeah, and like Mr. Johnson said, the interior electrical stuff, a lot of the ceiling tiles were missing. And that wall in the back, we don't know how safe that is, really.
Mr. Dort, could we get you to identify yourself just for the record?
Yeah, Steve Dort.
Fire
Department.
And Lieutenant Dixon back here in the background.
Thank you. So you've identified electrical violations.
Yeah, ceiling tiles missing.
Is there evidence of a leaking roof, or does the roof need to be repaired? Or do we know?
There was one small spot where it looked like it was leaking maybe a little bit, but nothing major.
Okay. I saw that there was a picture of a furnace, it looked like in the photos. Do we know if the furnace is in good repair?
I personally didn't see the furnace, so I can't speak about it.
Okay. That might tie into the electrical problems as well.
Yeah.
I guess one of my bigger concerns, and you just mentioned it, is the wall, the exterior wall.
Yeah, the back wall. It looks like there used to be a window there that's been blocked over, and both upper corners of the window have pretty bad cracks, step cracks going up the wall, and it looks like it's bowed out a little bit. So we put on our fire report that they'll have to have some qualified professional inspect that and make the necessary repairs.
Okay. So what you'd be looking for is like maybe an attestation from an architect or engineer to say that wall is stable?
Yes.
And if a professional could not provide that statement, then you'd be looking for, I take it, a permit to be pulled and corrections to be made.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Mr. Zorns, do you have a clear understanding of what violations exist there that you'll be expected to correct if the board grants time?
Absolutely, sir. Actually, I have an inspection today for the electrical at some point today, so we can get, and you talk about security and the outside the building and stuff. Once we do get the electrical turned on, we are putting security up. There was security there before when there was another murder across the street. That Akron police took the DVR and solved that. But there will be, once we get to the next stage, and it's kind of, smaller steps for me because I work for a living, I have a store, and I don't have $1 million in the bank, but I have enough to make this work.
Okay. So if your electrical inspection requires repairs to be made, will you make sure that a permit's pulled and the county inspects the work for approval?
Absolutely. The ceiling tiles, we spoke with Mr. Johnson and Mr. Dort that I would take all ceiling tiles out. The roof part of it will be exposed and painted. That's what I've came up with when they spoke on the ceiling tiles, because they're all coming out. So there won't be anything falling from the ceiling or anything like that.
Is that acceptable with the fire department to take those ceiling tiles out?
Yes, it is. Yep. And as long as it's approved by the building department.
Okay. And Mr. Zorns, do you have an architect or an engineer that would be able to inspect that wall that the fire department has some concerns with due to the crack and the bowing?
As of today, no, but I will. I do have friends that do that, and I will, within a short period of time, have someone go out there and look and do what needs to be done.
Okay, so do you
On this-
understand, what the fire department's looking for is a statement from a professional, either an
Yes.
architect or an engineer, to say that wall is stable and safe?
Yes.
Okay, and if your engineer or architect can't do that, the fire department would be expecting a permit to be pulled and repairs to be made to that wall.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. York. I think that all helps our understanding as well. Okay. Mr. Zorn, anything to add then?
I really, since in the last few months, since I've known this was coming, I've kind of, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I kind of drug my feet because I knew, well, there's a chance that you guys might tear this building down. If I turn the electric on and turn the water on and turn the gas on and spend thousands of dollars, and then you come tear it down, then I'm out thousands of dollars. Once this decision's made, either way, then I'll be able to move forward. And, if you do give me time, then I can produce, I can make things happen. That's why I've kind of, been a little slow, but once your decision's made, then I can move forward and start this process.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I have a question for Mr. Zorn. Mr. Zorn, you have a business partner in this building, Benjamin Marshall.
Yes.
What is his involvement with getting this building up to code if granted that possibility?
Well, Mr. Marshall is not around at this point. He won't be around for a few years, so he really has nothing of, he's kind of a silent partner at this point.
He's incarcerated, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
I didn't know if you can hear me. I appreciate it. If you guys were to grant him this approval for a time extension, is there a way to kind of put this in order, which one you would like to address first? Do you guys do that, or do you guys just want them all done within a certain amount of time?
You're talking about each item specifically?
Yeah, correct.
I don't think the board can do that, but.
No, I didn't know if
what they
some of these, some of these projects definitely stack, one stacks on the other. But I just didn't know if there was besides that door and, and granting him the ability to do it, I didn't know which ones were more important than others. That's all.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gruger.
If I could comment. Yeah, Mr. Alstrom, my suggestion would be to investigate the violations or the repairs that have the potential to have the most financial impact. From my review of this, and I've never visited the building, it appears that the bowing and cracking of that exterior wall is a potentially expensive fix. If we cannot get a statement from a licensed bonded structural engineer or architect vouching for the stability of that wall, then that wall is going to need to be repaired to a point where it can be declared stable and safe. That could be a $100,000 repair. The decision on whether or not the property can be saved from a financial standpoint on behalf of on Mr. Zorn's part may be determined by that wall. So I would look at the repairs that have the potential to have the highest cost to see at which point it would be cost prohibitive to even start putting. If you know that you're going to have to spend $80,000 on that wall, then you wouldn't, and you don't have the ability or desire to do that, then you would have no need to start on any of the other repairs. You would simply say, we can't do this because the wall's not going to get done. So I would start there and start with any of the repairs that look like they're going to have the highest cost.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Members of the board? For the record, anyone here to speak against? Okay, hearing none. If no one else has any further comments or questions, I'd ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on case number 00132-21, 1086 Brown Street. Due to the building being vacant, dilapidated, safety hazard, tax delinquent, blight and nuisance to the community, the expense of the repairs of this building, I think that I would like to make a motion to have this building demoed. I would have liked to see if Mr. Zorn was really interested in getting this building completed, if he had came forward with some of these repairs before the meeting. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Polk. We have a motion for demolition. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oppose.
One opposed. All right. So this board has moved and voted for demolition. All right. Mr. Gregory, you want to bring in, I guess it'd be Mr. Lafayette for the
Right,
next.
Mr. Chair, I didn't know if we wanted to give the same explanation of the next steps.
Well, yeah, I guess we should do that. Mr. York, would you?
Well, notice will be going out to the owner. It'll state his rights as relate to the order, and he'll be able to decide whether he wants to appeal or not. If there's no appeal, or if there's an unsuccessful appeal, then the order would be demolished, to demolish the property, and that would stand. All right.
Thank you. I'm going to move the folks who testified for this case back into the waiting room and then bring in the folks for our next case. Also going to mention that I do not believe Mr. Lafayette or Mr. Ram were sworn when they were here for the next case, but let me bring them in one moment.
Okay. It looks like Mr. Lafayette is having some difficulty here. Are we going to be able to get him?
I can ask him to. I'm going to put him in the waiting room and bring him back in, see if that helps. He should be here. Mr. Lafayette, do you have a video? And can you hear us?
Well, we have his attorney, Mr. Shearer. We're going to need to proceed.
If I may, I think we can probably, that's fine. I see that we have the tenant on as well. That's Brandon's iPhone there. So Mr. Ram, and I think he can probably testify as to the progress. I submitted some photographs earlier this morning in a PDF that are stamped with page numbers. So you can look at those and see the progress. And what we're requesting, if we could, is that you.
Before we get into
Sure,
any of
go
that
ahead.
testimony, can we go ahead and bring in the tenant and swear him in?
He's in, Mr. Chair. It's Brandon Ram.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, he is. Can you unmute? Looks like Mr. Lofty Fard is in as well. Well, we lost him. Oh, there he is.
Okay, they're both here, Mr. Chair.
Can we swear them in?
Sure. Mr. Ram and Mr. Lofty Fard, could you please raise your right hand? Can you hear me, Mr. Lofty Fard? Mr. Lofty Fard, we don't have audio for you. I'm not able to hear you. Could you say something?
Yeah, we can't hear him.
Okay, let's go ahead with Mr. Ram, and we have Mr. Shearer here who won't need to swear in. But I'll swear in Mr. Lofty Fard so that if we're able to get his audio working, he'll be able to testify. Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could you shake your head yes, Mr. Lofty Fard? If you agree, say yes. All right.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lofty-Fard does not have audio hooked up, so there's no way for me to ask him to put on his audio. He may want to leave and come back.
I don't know how we get that information to him if he can't hear us.
Well, I can put him back in the waiting room and bring him back in. Normally, the audio is connected while you're while you're entering a room. It's something he's going to have to do on his end to connect his audio. So.
Well, let's give it a shot. And in the meantime, Mr. Shearer, if you want to continue, I know you sent some pictures. I was able to see them this morning. It looks like progress has been made. Do you want to summarize or do you want to have the tenant?
If you don't mind, yeah, we submitted some pictures. You see that internal work is continuing. The tenant is doing that work, and it seems to be progressing. They continue to communicate with the building officials. And I think, if I may submit, that it seems appropriate that perhaps the board just turn this thing over to the building officials. The building officials can continue to review this thing and to do inspections as they come due until an occupancy permit is continuing, is granted. These folks are serious about this. They continue to put money into this thing. They're not going to let this thing fall apart at this point.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Brandon, I do not have your last name, but if you want to go ahead and weigh in on the progress.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Johnson.
May I summarize, please?
I'm sorry, we didn't do that. I got kind of out of order trying to.
Yeah, I got a little out of order.
My apologies. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0013-20, address of 1015 East Talmadge. This case was last reviewed May 12, 2020. At that time, the board ordered the owner to provide proof of permit process being started and schedule appointments with the city of Akron. Mr. Chairman, the city of Akron is not very happy with this owner. We have not had any contact. We have not had an opportunity to inspect the inside, even though the attorney sent some pictures today. It was made very clear to the owner as well as the occupant by yourself, Mr. Chairman, and I believe the city's attorney, that they keep in contact with us and we have an opportunity to inspect. We didn't inspect it before the last meeting, and we were not contacted to inspect this time. We haven't seen any permits, any proof of that process even being started. We're not very happy with this building owner at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
That's the board.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the last week's, well, when we first started this process, I remember Ali walking through an inspector. I wasn't present, so I don't know exactly who that was, but we did do what we had to do. Company management is now registered as a contractor, which is the company that I own servicing other properties throughout Ohio. I did not know exactly what we were doing as far as the permits go, but I did know that we were supposed to pull a plumbing permit, which was not able to be done until we figured out where the water was coming in, which we did by installing the gutters and, doing some roof repair. That did stop the heavy rain in the past weeks have stopped us from making a full repair to the roof, because you need, 5 or 6 consecutive days without rain to apply the type of roofing system that we would like. As Mr. Shearer said, we've been investing a lot of money in here. We don't plan to not comply or, not do what it is you guys want us to do. It's just before we can continue, the roof is a big thing, and without the weather permitting, as we're just now getting into the summer months, that's hard. So we've just been doing other things, which is like the outside of the building. If you can see there's a dumpster there, we've been taking out, the demo or debris. And we're not stopping. Everything is ready to roll. We have a license with the state that's pending. We can snap that into play, at any point. So we're doing what we have to do. If you guys look across the street, my guys are probably there working right now. So and I'm not even in the state. I'm in Puerto Rico, but we're not stopping. So if we could, I don't know, keep that. One person said send it to the city to deal with. You guys have the option to obviously leave it with you for another 30-day hearing. Doesn't matter to me. I just want to be able to have the chance to actually do what we have to do here. Due to COVID, contractors are limited. I do have multiple properties. You can look us up, eBerry, RE LLC. So we're, working within our schedule to comply with not just this building, but all of them at the same time. And, it's just tough, with COVID and, limited workforce.
Okay, well, the board does have another option, just so you know, and that's to have the building raised.
No, we don't want that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. What stopped the communications with the city?
Oh, I didn't know it was supposed to, like, I was leaving, not to throw Mr. Lofty under the bus. That's not my intention at all, but I thought that he was handling his end with correspondence as far as inspections and so on. But I thought it was on me to just do my part.
Okay. What is the state license that you referred to? What is that?
Well, no, to be registered with you guys as a contractor, you had to bring in the bond, insurance, and so on.
Okay, just kind of threw me when you said state license.
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved from New York to Ohio within the last year, so I'm just now getting really familiar with how you guys do things and processes and such.
Okay, well, as Mr. Johnson stated, it was very clear from last month's meeting what this board wanted to see. It doesn't sound like any of it happened.
Well, all the work was performed. There was not an inspection scheduled. That's pretty much it.
Mr. Chair, if I could just chime in, this is John York. I think we covered this last month, but the importance of permits through the county can't be overstated. If work gets done, but it's not done pursuant to the code, it really doesn't count. We need to have professionals, which are the county inspectors, observe the work and approve the work. I think there was some structural work done out there, some drywall, some new walls put up. Mr. Rums testified that he knows he needs a plumbing permit. And I think we've talked about an occupancy certificate. All those things need to be the process needs to be started so we know the county's involved. And from what I'm hearing, none of that has started. So again, I would just say, if the board grants time, these folks really need to pull permits and follow through with the inspections and approval with the professionals at Summit County.
I can have that done by the end of the day. I can have someone in the Summit County building within the next hour to pull those permits. And the work that was done was done quite some time ago. So it wasn't as though we went ahead and did that work after the meeting. After we spoke to you last, we, took care of the stuff, the exterior work. We haven't built anything. Everything was done to shore up the building more so and take care of the main issues. We haven't built anything or done anything that would require us to go through you guys first and show what we're doing. We haven't done that. So we don't plan to do that until we're with, have you guys gone through the building.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the county going through the building. There was work done out there. I've seen photos over the months of changes to the walls and it looked like layout. And I don't know if that's proper or not, but I want to make sure the county says whether it's proper or not. And that's what we need.
Got you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Dwayne Greger, Housing Administrator. It's just kind of piggybacking on what Mr. York is saying and also to comment on Mr. Shear's idea at the beginning of the testimony to have this removed to let the city follow up. My point would be this, we're hearing that these things that need to be done are easy to accomplish. And we think we've made it clear at each of these hearings over the past several months what needs to be done to bring this property into compliance. It concerns me that when we have a building appearing before the board month after month after month under the threat of demolition, and these things are not getting done, what would give us any type of assurance that these things are going to be completed when it's not being reviewed by a board that has the authority to order it demolished? So, little things like we appreciate being sent photographs of work that's being done, but that doesn't take the place of an inspection that we asked to have scheduled so that we can see for ourselves what has been done and what still needs to be done. It's just very concerning to me that we're coming to this building month after month after month, and we don't appear to be on the verge of compliance or having it to a point where we're comfortable removing it from the agenda. So that's just my comment.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
One second. How long is this? When did this first come before the board? Mr. Johnson, do you have that?
Oh, let me see. July 8th, 2020.
So we're coming up on a year. Okay. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a building at 835 East Brookfield. That's the one place where I've learned to the way your process works. But before that, I've put together 10 houses that are rented, and I've had inspectors come by and they told me that they didn't have to come inside if there wasn't a sighting, and that if there was, then they would do so. So I've never called an inspector or anything. I've never even dealt with one except for over the phone. And there was one time where the tenant didn't have water and, they wanted them to vacate. But otherwise, I haven't had too much communication with the county, and I'm still, or the city for that matter, I'm still learning how to maneuver through you guys.
We can't speak to that, your other properties, but I can tell you that we've been very specific here from this board about what we expect.
Right, I've only been involved the last 3 hearings. And I'm not saying that you guys are not being fair. I just thought that we've done what it was that we were supposed to, with the exception of the permit process and getting you guys in there. I do understand that and the importance of it, which is why I said before the end of the day, I could have those things done without a problem. We don't mean to, screw you guys around or not take you serious. I'm new here, and I'm new to the process. I haven't been involved throughout the demolition process up until, you know, the last 2 or 3 that we've had, the two or three hearings we've had.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Johnson. Sorry, I wasn't sure who was.
I'd just like to reiterate that you explained it very well to the attendant, as well as to the owner, the necessity of us verifying work and progress. And then so did Mr. York at the last meeting. And I brought up, when the tenant first got involved with this, that I was concerned that there was miscommunication and finger pointing going back and forth between the owner and the tenant. I think it's onerous on the tenant to know that the owner needs to make sure he contacts us and get us in there so we can see what's going on. And I just think that there's just either miscommunication or some sort of misunderstanding that needs to be clearly cleaned up. And I can't express enough that the city is very dissatisfied with the lack of communication and seemingly understanding of a simple thing of an inspection appointment being set up so we can see what's going on.
Okay. Yep. I thought we were very clear too. Thank you for that confirmation. I'm going to ask Mr. Shear, since we cannot hear from Mr. Loftyfard, would he care to elaborate anything? I don't see him now. Did we lose him?
We lost Mr. Shear, and he's not in the waiting room. It appeared he was in his car. Perhaps he lost his signal.
Yeah. Well, I guess for the record, anyone to speak against? Okay. Members of the board have any thoughts? Questions? No, if no questions, Brandon, I give you one last opportunity to summarize your case, and then I'm going to ask for a motion.
I'd ask that the board give us an extension to comply with what it is. I would like to follow up with an email to Mr. Johnson, as that's who I have communication with, and just get a clear understanding of what it is you guys would like to see. I do understand the inspection process and such, but going forward beyond that, and then I'd like to submit a timeline in terms of completion and work scope. I really, like I said, I just moved here. This is kind of where all my eggs are. So it's in my best interest to make it work. That doesn't mean that I can undermine you guys' process or do it my way. I'm willing to comply in every way that you or the board sees fit. Again, like I said, I just ask for an extension. It doesn't have to be the full 30 days, but just time to get in compliance with what the board is asking.
Okay, thank you. All right. No one from the board has any thoughts, comments, or questions? I'll ask for a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, hearing none, that I think this has been going on long enough. It's been going on almost a year, that we have made it clear that our requests for permits to be pulled, inspections to be seen, and that have not been done. So I would like to make the motion to have this demo.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. All right. Mr. York, would you like to summarize how this proceeds then, like the others?
Sure. Well, notice will be sent to the owner. Who'll have the opportunity to decide whether to appeal the decision or not. If the appeal is not filed or not successful, then the building would be demolished. And I would anticipate the minimum period of time that would take place probably 6 months from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move Mr. Ram and Mr. Lofty back in the waiting room and bring in Mr. Williams, Attorney Williams, for the Arlington property.
Okay.
I already wrote the check, so I'll just write you a check for 532 and I'll leave him here. So he was a little concerned about it. So.
Getting some background from somebody, but anyways, all right, we have Mr. Williams. This is, I'm sorry, this is case number 18-20-1079 South Arlington Street. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0018-20, address 79 South Arlington Street. This case was last heard May 12, 2021. At the time, the board granted an extension for the owner to get the certificate of occupancy, allow the city of Akron to inspect and not use the building or occupy the building for any reason. Mr. Chairman, there has been some work done here, but Mr. Lofty Fart indicated that that food truck would not be being used at the last board meeting. And 4 or 5 hours later, I went out to the property and the food truck was there operating like normal. Mr. Lofty Fart did, Mr. Yusafi did contact me and apologized and said he would stop. And since then, we haven't seen any activity of the food truck. But when we inspected it yesterday to see how the, it was Monday, the 7th, we inspected that. When we inspected the building to see how the progress was for the electrical work that needed to be done. Wasn't complete, but the electricians were there and they were in the process of finishing up their repairs. Mr. Yusefi indicated to me that he was going to start the process of getting the certificate of occupancy and also produce the permits. So far, we haven't seen that. Now, if you look at some of these pictures going through the building, inspecting the general area, we found what looks like some other business has been being ran in this building, even though it was clear that there was not supposed to be any occupancy of any kind. As you can see in the upstairs bar, there's cans of pop, there's juices set up along the liquor cabinet, there's dirty dishes, there's dirty glasses. There's a storage room there that has paper plates and napkins and other items that would show that it's being used for either an illegal nightclub or a juice bar of some sort, or possibly a party center. We're not real happy with Mr. Yusefi. The city is very disappointed. We don't believe he's being 100% honest with the city of Akron and this board.
Yeah,
How's the communication been as far as what's going on?
He has been communicating with us about the process of the electrical work and whatnot. He's called me a few times on that. So that part seems to be moving, but as I've stated, we haven't seen any permits. We haven't seen any receipts that he has started the process of getting the certificate of occupancy. None of that. But we were promised that we were going to see all that, but we haven't seen it.
Haven't seen anything.
Nope.
And Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, if I could add
Yeah,
to Mr. George's comment or to Mr. Johnson's comments, my observations are similar to this and similar to the comments I made on the previous case that month after month now we're getting the same promises, and the board has made it very clear we need a certificate of occupancy, we need permits and inspections and approvals from Summit County Building Department, and that the building cannot be used for any purpose until that's done. This is now the second time that we've arrived for an inspection to find clear evidence that people are occupying the building and conducting some sort of business in the building. And it's just very disconcerting that we can't seem to get to the finish line with this when we've been promised month after month that these inspections would occur, these permits would occur, the certificate of occupancy that we've been promised, I believe, since November, that could be done in a matter of weeks. It's still not done, and then this is now the second instance where we found what we feel is clear evidence of activity in a building that has been made clear that there's to be no activity. So it's just been very frustrating on the city's part to have to continue to deal with this building.
Thank you, Mr. Greger. Mr. Giuseppe, would you like to update us on your end?
Yeah, can I intervene just for a minute? Because Mr. Giuseppe needs to address the issue of the alleged occupancy, but late yesterday, he came into my office and I have the County of Summit final electrical inspection that it complied. I have his completed application for a certificate of occupancy and the check required fee that he tendered. I would ask to be able to supplement the record with those because we couldn't do it before the hearing. So he has gotten the electric work done, gotten the inspection, and has applied for a certificate of occupancy. He had to prepare plans that the person who makes the approval of those plans isn't in until next week. So we won't be able to have the application actually granted until next week. So in that regard, we have done what we have said we were going to do. Now, Mr. Giuseppe needs to address the issues that were brought up by Mr. Johnson and the pictures that we were shown to offer an explanation for that. I've been told over and over again by my client that he is not allowing any occupancy. It was made clear to him that he can't do that until he gets the certificate granted. So,
all right, before we do that, can you just when was the electrical permit issued?
6/7/21, Mr. Chairman.
That was Monday?
It's right. And then I've got the application for certificate of occupancy and his canceled check. Well, not his canceled check, but a copy of the check that it's $293 and change that you have to apply. So he has done that.
I want to go back to the electrical. When did the inspection take place?
June 7th, Monday, sir.
And it was approved the same day?
It says complies, County of Summit complies, final electrical. It's signed by a O. Miller.
And you didn't have time to get that to the city in advance of this meeting?
No, I couldn't. I didn't get it till late yesterday as I was leaving the office.
Okay, but Mr. Giuseppe could have. Okay. Those are my questions. Go ahead, Mr. Giuseppe.
The electrical work, as they were coming there the certified electrician were working. At the end of the day, it was completely done. It was not an easy job. The last 9 months, I haven't missed one single day. Every 7 days I've been working there. Now, as far as occupancy is concerned, I have a copy of the certified check, and everything was given to them. The lady came finally just to me and said that it has to be signed by the chief of the building department, and that guy is on vacation. As far as those bottles is concerned, I am the one that as soon as we left the meeting here and I saw a truck there and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I have already got the approval of the city." Immediately, I contacted my lawyer. I contacted Mr. I believe Wilson, and I contacted the Gregor. And I said, "This guy says that I have already approved these things, my trailer." Mr. Gregor told me that I will find out, and they put a label over there that nobody can come the same day. The guy came, the guy who had given him the approval that he could, his trailer, he can use his trailer. He came to me the same day and told me that he has to get the kitchen and those things done before he, from that point on, probably at the most, he was open for 2 hours and I shut him off as soon as I talked to Gregor on the same day. And I saw when Mr. Wilson came there and the truck was, I said, "I already reported this." And I believe, if I remember correctly, I did talk to him too. And ever since, nobody has been there. At my knowledge, nobody had the key to get there. And those bottles, when did they come? I don't know. I have never seen it. Yes, I have seen that bottle all along over there, that bottle of juices. And yes, those people were sort of not very informed people. They thought they had everything in their hand. They had even tablecloth and those things. They grabbed all of them and put them in the bags. And probably they didn't take their bottles because I took the key out of their hand. And nobody has been there ever since. And it was not so easy job to finish all those things. To finish that electrician. I was at the mercy of electrician. A lot of time I came there, spend my time, could not find a helper to do even the cleanup myself. And but I did work along. I was very much on my toes to get this done. And everything that was asked of us is done properly.
Okay. Board members, have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yusefi, who have a key to your building other than you?
I had it, the electrician had it, and the guy who wanted to lease this place had it. 3 people.
Okay. So you saying that the liquor and juices, pop and everything was not there last month?
I'm not sure, sir. I'm not sure. First of all, I don't think if there was liquor. I don't drink, I don't go after any of those things, and I'm not sure. But if I saw it, I didn't really thought that was a crime to be there. I don't know.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, when you was out there that day after our last meeting last month, was any of the liquor there then?
Mr. Chairman, we did not go into that upper bar when I observed the food truck there all 3 times. But I can say that when we inspected the building before last month's meeting, it wasn't there. None of the juices, none of the condiments. It had been cleaned up. It looked like it has ever since we've been coming in and out of there, as far as having items like that. So if that was put there during the time that the food truck was operating outside of the back kitchen, we did not get an opportunity to inspect that far into the building. But it looked fresh. It looked fresh. And I'd also like to add, some of those pictures, if Mr. Greger puts them back up, there's a bedroom upstairs that looked like it's being used.
Correct.
Mr. Giuseppe, is anybody staying there?
No, sir. As I told Mr. Johnson, it was 15 years ago or 14 years ago that was used. And ever since, when they went the first time, it was there. They went there, they saw there was what they call shower was there. Air conditioning was there, but it was taken out. Everything has been disconnected, and that bed is from 14 years ago. And the guy, I'm sure after 14 years ago, it has never been used.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, can I make another statement?
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Pope.
Yeah, from my past experience of being in the fire department, going into vacant buildings and everything, that bed looks too clean to be there for 14 years not being used. I mean, the picture shows, from what I get there, the sheets is almost perfectly clean looking. No dust, no dirt, no scuffs, anything to say that that was from past service of years ago. Also, I just think Mr. Giuseppe haven't been truthful with us from day one. And I believe he's been misleading this board ever since.
You have to apologize. I never lied in my life. Okay, sir? Never. You never hear lie from this mouth, period. And if you have the proof.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a few questions of Mr. Johnson? It's John York.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. York.
Mr. Johnson, you've testified about pop and juice. Was there also alcohol that you observed?
I didn't see any bottles of alcohol.
Okay, so those bottles on what looks like a bar there, those are not alcoholic juice?
Yeah, they're all juices, pop, things that you can mix a drink with, but no alcohol. I see.
Okay. Thank you.
But when I'm looking at that picture, I see 3 bottles of liquor. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it looks like some.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
What are these on the cans in the top left corner? Do you recall what cans those were?
No, I don't. I don't know exactly what that is. They got so many different cans of stuff out. It could have had liquor in it, and it could have not.
Okay. I'm not sure it's material, whether there was liquor in it or not. I think the point's probably the same either way, whether it's juice or pop. You,
But
you
these
seem to
pictures-
have you have the belief that it's being used, that the building's being used and it shouldn't be.
Sorry, just to chime in here, the pictures have a date on the 7th as well. Is that before or after the occupancy? It's the same date, but were you guys there inspecting for the occupancy?
We were there inspecting for the purpose of this board meeting. And the electrical inspector was due to be there sometime later. And the electricians were there doing their work while we were there.
But from the pictures and the dates, we're seeing more than likely occupied before any certificates.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, Mr. Williams explained that Mr. Yusefi's applied for the occupancy certificate, but he hasn't yet gotten it. So up until the time that certificate's issued, there shouldn't be any use of the building.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gregor.
Yeah. Yeah. The one picture shows the cans. I just for point of clarification, are White Claw, which I believe is an alcoholic beverage. The point that I would also like to make is that if that room with the bed and I can see a bathroom in the background does not meet the requirements of the housing code as a dwelling, then it should not be used or even have the appearance of being used for overnight occupancy, and that bed should be removed.
Okay. All right. Mr. Giuseppe, anything else to add?
If I could say something, I've been working with him now for several months. My focus has been for him to get the work done and the inspections done. To be honest, I have never been inside that property. I've represented Mr. Giuseppe for several years, and he's never lied to me. He's always listened to me. I don't, the pictures are the pictures. It is disturbing evidence. Mr. Johnson seemed to indicate that they hadn't inspected upstairs. So I don't know if some of this residue was from when the illegal food truck was there that Mr. Giuseppe has taken care of. We have reached, it seems to me that we have a mixed bag here. There's an alleged occupancy without a certificate, and that's not a good thing. But we are on the cusp of him getting that occupancy now. It simply have to get the county protocol handled. And then that issue, except for the bed, so there's no residency, would be taken care of. I would hope that alleged occupancy doesn't thwart all of the efforts to make that the building is now ready to be used for a proper purpose.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, for the record, anyone to speak against? Hearing none. Board members, thoughts? Motion?
With respect to case 0018-20, 1079 South Arlington Street. While everything hasn't been handled as completely as we would like, I would like to make a motion that we grant a 30-day extension for the owner to adhere to what we've asked him to do on this, and And that would be the motion.
Can we, just so that we have clear instructions here for them, can we attach some specifics to your
Certainly.
motion? Mr. Burke, for instance,
Yes.
I'd like to add that they obtain the occupancy permit.
Okay.
I'd like to have them address specifically the issues of occupancy and the evidence thereof, including the bed and the bottles and the juices and all that. And Mr. Johnson, are there any other inspections or anything, any other permits required that we should be thinking about?
It seems like they have what we require as far as the electrician's certificate. The occupancy level is in the process. We do need to see that roof that he had put on was done by a certified roofer. And the downspouts to that building, especially on the backside, need to be addressed. We were there Monday when it was raining, and those downspouts were in disrepair. The front of the building does not have a gutter at all, so rain is just coming down on the front of the front door, which at some point is going to cause some foundation issues. So we'd like to see that be addressed as well.
Thank you. So, so if we could add then that the appellant address the roof, the downspouts, and have those inspected as well.
Yes, and proof that a certified roofer did the job.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Burke, I just want to have some specifics so that we don't get into a scenario next month that they weren't clear on what we wanted.
Yes, I understand.
Could I ask a question of Mr. Johnson? Didn't we address the issue of the roof, sir, previously? Because you brought this issue up and that we had submitted documentation about the roof. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But I thought we had cleared that issue up for you.
No, you guys put the roof on. We told you the roof had issues because shingles were being blown off. And he had a roof put on, but we haven't seen that it was done by a certified roofer. But also, whoever did that roof, they didn't put the downspouts back and they didn't put gutters on the front.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Shearer, are you clear then on what we're going to expect at the next meeting? I'm sorry, Mr. Williams.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I've taken notes and.
Okay, thank you. I apologize again, Mr. Burke, again, just wanted to be clear. So, are you?
No, that's fine.
As amended?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, Mr. Yusefi, you've been granted 30 days to our next meeting, which is,
Sir, I have
July
one
14th.
comment.
no, I
July
didn't ask for
14th.
your comment. I'm talking here.
Don't make it.
Okay, I'm
Somebody
sorry.
confirm the date of the next meeting?
July 14th.
July 14th, at which time you'll be expected to show everything that we've asked for here today. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I'm sorry, could we confirm the voting? I heard two no votes. Was it 3 votes
three,
for the motion and 2 against?
that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I think we're done here. Mr. Gregor, if you
Sure.
want to bring in the next
I'm
people.
going to put them back in the waiting room and bring in Mr. Stowers.
Okay, very good. Stowers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can't see you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay.
Were you sworn in originally?
Yes, this morning.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you for your patience. I apologize. It's taken.
No problem. No
All
problem.
right. So this is review case hearing number 26-20, 415 Store Avenue. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0026-20, address of 415 Store Avenue. This case was last reviewed May 12, 2021. At the time, the board required that the owner repair the roof. Since then, we received today from Mr. Stowers an estimate from a roofing company that states that the cost would be $3,263.17. The estimate also has a note written within it that states that the company advised Mr. Stowers that due to COVID-19, their company was shut down, but will resume work the 1st of June, which I guess hopefully they're back up and running now. And they have scheduled him to have his roof repaired starting July 6, 2021. And we have not had an opportunity to re-inspect the inside for the purpose of this this board meeting.
Okay. So basically not much has happened since the last meeting.
Other than he got the estimate.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Stowers, you want to give us an update, please?
Well, I have two investors that want to go on board with this project with me. And one of them is waiting on funding. So in the time being, we're going to start on the annex side, which is not the bad side of the building. That's the smaller structure of the school.
Okay. Any idea on when the funding would come through that you're talking about?
No, I don't know the exact date for the funding. But until then, I could start with the smaller classrooms on the annex side. I could start having classes on that side.
Do you have an occupancy permit?
No, not yet.
Have you applied?
Yes.
Okay. When do you expect to get that?
To get the occupancy permit?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Johnson, I'm not sure where that leaves us here.
Yeah, the city is right now concerned that he gets that roof repaired. We wouldn't be opposed to the board granting him time to get that done, especially since it's scheduled by looking at his receipt for the estimate in 30 days or so. We'd also like to see a written plan of where he's at. And we do need to re-inspect and see if some of the ending cleanup that was being done the last time we were out there, see how much of that has been completed.
Okay. Mr. Stowers, is that something you can arrange, both the plan as well as another inspection?
Yes.
Okay.
As well as start the process of the getting the certificate of occupancy.
Yes.
Okay. And the roof.
Definitely the roof.
And, okay. Anything else to add, Mr. Stowers?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else to speak for? Anyone here to speak against? Hearing none, turn over to the members of the board if you have any questions. If none, I'll entertain a motion. Anyone care to make a motion here?
I'll make a motion in case number 0026-20, 415 Store Avenue. I'd like to move that we grant a 30-day extension with the requirements that Mr. Stowers have a reinspection by the city and submit a written plan to the city as well. Complete the roof repairs, or at least get them started on July 6th, and then begin the process of obtaining the certificate of occupancy.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed? And for the record, that 30 days would be at our next meeting, July 14th, Mr. Stowers. So please proceed with all those things that we mentioned, and we'll see you then.
Hello, I have a question for Mr. Johnson.
Is it?
Yes.
Does it pertain to what you need to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as far as the roof is concerned, they gave me an estimate, but one thing he mentioned was about material. Any event that he has problem getting material, do I contact Mr. Johnson for that, or how do I go about handling that?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Stowers, you can keep in contact with either myself or Rachel and let us know the progress. You know,
okay.
if there's legitimate issues, I'm sure it'll be clear, and you'll be able to present evidence or receipts or something to let us know. But just keep in contact with us and let us know the progress, and we'll work with you. As long as you're doing the right thing, we'll work with you.
Okay.
And I'd like to reiterate, Mr. Stowers, I mean, I know from personal experiences, shortages of supplies and so forth out there. I think the big thing is what Mr. Johnson just said, just keep in touch. If you keep in communication and let the city know what's going on,
okay.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had a motion, we voted, we're 30 days, right?
Right.
So we're good to go. All right.
Hey, Mr. Chair, there's no one else to speak on the last case, on the Cuyahoga Falls Avenue case.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and introduce then new case hearing number 14-21. This is 294 to 298 East Cuyahoga Falls Avenue. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, case number 0014-21, address of 294 and 298 East Cuyahoga Falls Avenue. This building is vacant, open, dilapidated, tax delinquent, and not registered in the VBR. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the deteriorated condition of this property makes it a public nuisance and a blight and safety hazard to the neighbors. It is tax delinquent in the amount of $86,290.27. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if we can get the pictures up here, we have not inspected the inside of this building, even though we've been in contact with the owners. But you can't go inside this building. The pictures that you see are taken through the windows. The floor looks like it's completely gone. Be too dangerous to enter. The roof has holes in it. This is one of the worst buildings I've seen since I've been doing this. And there's 2 buildings on this site. So we want to be clear, this is the second building that Mr. Greger has up right now. And let's call that building number 2. They have the address of 298 and a half written on the building, but that doesn't actually exist in the county records. So building number 1 in the front of the property is the one that is in the worst condition. And the city recommends that building be demoed. The owners had indicated that they would sign a volunteer waiver, but so far we haven't seen that. So we think the board should take action. Building number 2, right now, we haven't seen the inside of it, but it looks fairly solid on the outside. It has some trash issues, which the city has sent that over to its nuisance compliance department to deal with that. But we would like to make it clear at this point that we remove building number 2 from this process. Until we can get a chance to see inside of it and reassess it and then bring it back if necessary. But from what I understand speaking with the owner, building number 2, there's some negotiations going on with the land bank. So they may have something to put forth with that one. But building number 1 is seriously a concern.
Okay, so thank you, first of all. And just a quick question for Mr. York. Do we need to do anything here to designate what the city would like us to do?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we definitely want to make sure the correct building gets ordered demolished. So, Mr. Johnson, if I understand your testimony, building number 1 is actually the one that's shown in the photograph with the 298 above the door?
I believe it does have 298 on it. Can you bring the front of the building? Yeah, that's building number 1.
So building number 1 is the one that you were not able to enter. It's also the one that you took pictures of through the window and that you've testified about all the problems with the floor and the danger.
Yes.
That is building number 1.
Correct.
Building number 2, you do not believe, or it's your testimony, it does not need to be demolished. It sounds like you might be following up with the owner to be able to do an interior inspection on that.
Yes, we have requested it and we have not heard back from the owner on that.
And I guess just to be clear, building number 2 is the one that's marked with 298 and a half above the door.
Correct.
Okay, so to answer your question, Mr. Chair, I think it would be good if part of the motion, or what I'd recommend is part of the motion be that if the board is to order demolition, that it identify actual building number 1 as the building that has 298 written above the door. That way, when the contractor goes out to hit the building, we make sure they get the right one. And I would also recommend making part of the motion that the building identified as number 2 that says 298 and 1/2 above the door would not be ordered demolished.
Okay, so we can do this
Yes.
with one motion and one vote.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, so for the record, anyone here to speak for this? Anyone to speak against? All right, then, hearing none. Mr. Johnson, would the city have a recommendation should the board grant that building to be continued as far as time? Went 30 days, 60 days?
The building number 2?
Yes.
We would recommend that the board remove that from this process and allow us to work with the owner to figure out what the land bank is doing, what they're going to do, and what the building looks like inside. If the building continues to be vacant and they continue not to register it, and it has some structural or other problems on the inside, then the city of Akron would bring it back to the board for review.
Remove now from completely.
Yeah, but
what happened.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Members of the board, we've heard what's going on here. Anybody have any comments, first of all? And if not, could we have a motion?
I'll try. For case 0014-21, 294 and 298 East Cuyahoga Falls Avenue, given that the property is vacant, open, dilapidated, tax delinquent, is a public nuisance and a blighted safety hazard to the community, I'd like to move the building number 1, 298 demolished, leaving building number 2 to be evaluated at a later date and removed from the vacant building registry process. And that's 298 and a half.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we make a vote on this, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In our case number, it's saying 294 and 298. Where is 294 at?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Pope.
Yes.
When you pull this property up on the county's website, it encompasses this property as one parcel. And next door to the building number 1 is a vacant lot that used to have an apartment building, from what I understand.
Okay.
And the owners signed a volunteer demolition some time ago to have that taken down by the city of Akron.
Okay.
But when you look at the website, it doesn't define which address goes with what building on the official document. But as you can see on the building, it has 298.
Okay. All right. I understand now. Thank you for clearing that up.
I understand your concern too, Mr. Falk. Mr. York, just so that we are clarified here, the way we've described the buildings and the pictorial evidence, we're okay and everything is understood with what we're doing. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe the motion adequately identified the building, so I think you're fine to move forward on that.
Okay, very good.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, and I shall abstain on this one. All right, so demolition is taken off. Any other business before the board this morning? Well, that was a longer meeting than I expected, but thanks everyone for their time. And,
I guess, Mr. Chair, if I could just say one thing, I don't know if you have any information, Dwayne, about when we might start meeting in person again? Do you have any?
Yes, we're the latest information I have is the city is looking into the various recommendations that are being made. To my knowledge, right now we will likely be taking our cue from Akron City Council, and at any such point in time where City Council resumes their meetings, their live in-person meetings, I would suspect that ours would soon follow. And my best estimate is that may occur later on this summer, maybe in August.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'd just say this for the members' benefit and all of us. because our notices go out with certain information on them, like we're going to meet by Zoom. We might have to meet by Zoom just because that's what the notices say that went out 2 months prior. I'm sorry, 2 weeks prior. So we might lag a little bit. Might not be able to get right back to in-person business, but we'll certainly follow as soon as possible after that.
All right, very good.
Thanks,
And
everybody.
members of the board and Mr. Chairman, I think Rachel may have had to leave for an appointment, so I'm not sure if the documents that need to be signed will be ready today. So if you don't see me today, you'll see me tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
You.
I just have a quick question that I can ask. Is Rachel was not here for the meeting today, or, I mean, I didn't see her, but there was a lot of people here today, so.
But she told me she had an 11 o'clock appointment, so I think
Okay.
she was here until about that time. Wayne, can you confirm that?
Yes, she was. She did send me a message, and she stayed connected, but she was not able to mute her phone, so she didn't want to stay on the meeting. But she was briefly part of the meeting.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to check. I didn't see her on the screen, so I just want to make sure when she was there and when she left. Okay, that clears it up for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.